Hello world! We are
Salwa,
and Sophia. We are honored that you're embarking this journey with us.
coming to you from across continents in early Sunday mornings.
We are here to talk to you about life,
Love,
self-worth,
relationships,
hardships,
motivation,
career,
creativity.
and everything in between.
So make yourself comfortable, grab a cup of tea or coffee,
And enjoy your early bird talk. Hello everyone! Hi Salwa!
Hi Sophia! Hope all is good.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, everything is great. I'm really so excited about today's topic.
Yes, me too. We're back on a one-on-one talk and we're bringing one of our favorites.
Although we enjoyed having a guest, undeniably, we cannot deny it. We really enjoyed having Fatima. And if you listen to Fatima's episode, she dropped a hint to this topic, which will be about empathy. So, in short, Selwa, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, this is really an interesting topic to handle, and we want to do it step by step. First of all, we're just going to explain why we picked this topic, especially at this time and moment of our year, and what is it related to after all, which is related to emotional intelligence and how it is linked to every other aspect of emotional intelligence. And what we want to do is really break down this to concrete situations that we all live and experience that show what empathy is, and also on a spiritual level, what does that mean, and mostly how to become an empathic person and why is that really interesting for us and for our siblings in society, and to which extent we can actually embrace this quality, if I may.
Okay, so today we'll be talking about empathy, and we'll try to try and navigate everything that is related to it. I remember that it was something new that I came across, and I was asking, what is empathy? But most importantly, why are we going to talk about empathy now and today?
Exactly. In the midst of all that is going on right now, we wanted to just bring you something we all need so desperately. With difference of all kinds, we can always find reasons to, disconnect, to separate from each other, to divide, and find reasons to just misjudge. But I think in spite of it all, we all remain one same humanity at the end of the day. And I think the recent events that happened related to coronavirus, for instance, showed just how much we are one humanity more than ever, because we were united as one against one virus and one difficulty. And we were united, feeling, in spite of our differences, and in spite of the privilege we might have, the empathy for one another.
So we believe that empathy actually can help link and help our fractured societies get back together and, come out of it as a community, which is why we really think that this corona thing is a global awakening moment. But let's just do it do it old school thing. So what is empathy? We can just go back to the Latin origins of the word, which is empathy, and that's empathos. So em and pathos. You might be familiar with pathos though. So empathos is like emotions, and empathy is emotions inside. So it's defined as the ability to have seen the world from the point of view of someone else. And there are a lot of writers who have extensively written about this topic, one of which is Maria Konnikova. And she says that empathy actually is how we can think and feel at the place of other people. And one stark example of it, well, she wrote about Sherlock Holmes. So we all know that Sherlock Holmes is portrayed as a sociopath, someone who doesn't know how to feel, doesn't know feels, like cannot deal with it. But the opposite is true, because empathy actually does not just depend on a warm heart, it also depends on a cool head to help link and understand the other people. So, yeah.
Yeah. So empathy, but when you say empathy, it may also be linked to so many other feelings or maybe emotional skills. We'll see about that a little bit later. But I don't know, empathy, just in wording, is very close to sympathy, but just not the same thing exactly. It's very linked also to building a connection, to feeling compassion. So all of a set of emotional skills that actually belong to a bigger scheme and fall into the emotional intelligence, which is something we actually talked about a little bit in our very early episodes, but we would like to take time this on this episode to just break a little bit down a little more. Um, Emotional intelligence, basically, in just one sentence, being something that facilitates our capacity to connect, to be resilient, to find motivation. It's that moment when we feel stressed and we have to deal with that stress. So, how we manage that, that's the skill that is related to emotional intelligence. It's our ability to kind of read and navigate all the social situations and conflicts. Um, Maybe you could give us some, I don't know, an example. There's so many examples in our lives. You maybe could talk
Yeah. I,
something about that.
exactly, because it's a lot of related to social situations, and I think that one of the first social ties, social relationship you might ever develop is one with your parents. And I personally had an experience with that. Not gonna say that I was an emotionally intelligent kid, probably the opposite. And when you get to learn and we get to know the others, and when you have this ability to the willingness actually to just try to understand others, it helps a lot. So for me, I think I had it with one of my parents, and we had very different patterns, like we saw the world really differently. So I was frustrated, they were frustrated, and we didn't know how to do it, right? So we took a few moments to read, to learn, to be willing actually to just communicate, and that has helped us. And now it's one of the best, I think, relationships I ever have now in my life currently. So we're best friends, mates, whatever, and it's really great. It gets you out of your comfort zone, definitely, but you feel that you are able to communicate, which is key. And this was this was possible through empathy, because we were both frustrated, right? And we felt it. So
Mm,
that has helped, and that's one of the examples.
that's great. I feel like, especially in our societies, communication is might be not our strongest assets and skill. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
developing empathy in spite and despite of a lack of communication is actually precious
Mm-hmm.
to get to the type of quality of relationships you get. That's great.
All right. So, but I think that one of the things that we have to keep in mind, so we are talking about emotional intelligence. There are different kind of intelligence, and we can just have one episode about these different kind of intelligence. But I think that we have like one or two other types that we can compare it to a better understanding of the emotional intelligence. One is the rational intelligence, and rational intelligence is maths, the things that helped you, for instance, earn your diploma or land your current career as a beginning, like when you start a career. And then it's related to the IQ, right?
Totally. IQ is our ability to solve everything that is very rational, linked to what scientists would call the left side of our minds. But even above us, above all of that, there is also the spiritual intelligence, which is just another level of consciousness and mindfulness, and bringing the spiritual side of our lives. It's kind of, to me, it's really the source that leads everything else and leads even rational intelligence and the emotional intelligence, and helps set make the decisions and pick the right attitude for each situation. So for me, really, spiritual intelligence comes really above all of that. But at the end of the day, an emotion is just simply something that I feel like our body or spirit sends to us. It's like a hint or a notification, like a way our unconscious mind communicates its decisions and feelings to the conscious mind, because we really don't listen to our unconscious mind all the time. So we either sense this emotion, or maybe a dream, or so emotion is one example, and emotional intelligence is a way to be conscious of that and fully embrace it.
Exactly. So it's not negative, it's not a positive thing if we're talking about emotions here. Take it as an unconscious, as Selwa put it beautifully, as an unconscious notification about what's going on. So, and we both know that, I mean, we've done some research and we have learned that emotional intelligence is composed of four main components, and they all are around self awareness or social awareness as well. So, the first one is self-awareness, and it's linked to emotional self-awareness. Is when we know who we are, we know our own values, what our feelings are, and what our emotions are. The second one is self-management. So now we've known the feelings, we've known the emotions. So how are we going to reach an emotional balance, adapt, and have a positive outlook on our emotions and orient these emotions? The third component is relationship management, and this is our emotions in contrast or in relation with others. So now we're out of the inner circle. So it's more related to teamwork, leadership, inspiration, or conflict management sometimes. And for that, we have a special thing to tell you about. And the last one is social awareness. And social awareness is even larger than the relationship management. And this one includes organizational awareness if you're working in a big corporate, or what we are talking about today actually is empathy. So empathy is in this category of social awareness.
Totally. Which brings us to what empathy actually, how empathy could serve in the social situations. This is a social awareness skill. You talked about conflict management. Would you tell us a little bit more about that? Well, let's say we could have a situation of conflict, of not agreeing on an idea or an opinion, just simply in a meeting or with your friends or whatever. A way to go into that situation is to be really strong-headed about your opinion, not willing to listen to the other, and just be willing to hear what he has to say and give. It's really not just about, first it's just about listening, and then we'll see about understanding, and furthermore accepting that opinion. So the starting point here and the jumping point, and maybe it is just the most important one, is intention. If your intention is really to find a common ground, it sounds like my favorite expression, common ground, or just really find the truth beyond who is right or who is wrong, or go beyond the conflict itself or whatever the situation is. Well, the starting point, if the starting point is right, your attitude is right, then you're better off finding that solution or the common ground, right?
I think it's before we jump into empathy or how to be more empathic or whatever, from our own experience, and you can ask around, it's your intention that will be central and help you become an empath. So if you are willing to understand, then you will, but if you're just there, not willing to do anything, then yeah, it's gonna be complicated, right?
Yeah, I think that could be a problem sometimes. Well, I'm reading this book called Journal d'Hirondelle by Amélie Nothomb, and this writer, in general, not just in this book is brings in characters that really have a complex profile, and in general are assassins. They have some kind of psychological trauma somewhere. And the way she portrays these characters is very interesting because at the beginning of the novel, you really don't know who is she talking about, and then suddenly you realize that that person is doing something horrible, actually, either killing or whatever, and you find yourself, as I did, feeling empathic with that person because she takes you in a narrative journey where she just kind of really brings in the story as if it's totally understandable why the person is doing why it is doing, and it's completely shocking for me because I'm like, oh yeah, I understand, but then I'm like, oh my god, what am I understanding? It's horrible. And it's like this dilemma she puts you in every time in her novels, and I still haven't finished this one. I'm halfway through, and we'll see how it will end up, but it makes me feel horrible, and it's addictive because of that. So empathy, you could feel empathy for a character, you could feel empathy because someone is writing in a way that really takes you along in the journey and you feel so sensitive about what you're
Huh.
reading.
I think that you can have empathy with animals as well. So I'm just gonna go back to Sherlock Holmes example. This is a shocking one because in Silver Blaze, written by Conan Doyle, Sherlock Holmes goes as far as to see through the eyes of an animal, a horse, in that case. So this is not something that you can just um you can just limit to humans or anything that's real, but you can go to literature, fictional characters, animals, and so on. But I think that through all our reading and experience, we can be talking about three levels of empathy, right? So, yeah, when you try to monitor some point, like focus how uh, empaths exhibit their empathy, there are practically three types, right? Wanna tell us about it, Selwa?
Totally. Up till now, we were bringing, I think, really weird examples about empathy. Don't worry, guys. We are taking you somewhere really beautiful and explaining why we think it's really interesting to develop this human trait. And it shows in three different levels. There's cognitive empathy, which is just the ability to understand another person's perspective. So somehow, let's say it's the first level. And then a little bit higher level would be emotional empathy, which means you engage with your emotions as well, meaning you feel what someone else feels. And then there's the third level, which is even higher, which is the empathic concern, which is your ability to totally sense what another person needs from you. So it's not just feeling what she feels, it's also understanding what she needs beyond that feeling in itself. These levels are reached depending on how much we practice empathy and how connected we might feel or not with the other person. And we need a different level of empathy depending on the situation, really, honestly.
I think it also depends on your motives and intentions. So if you really want to be an effective leader, if you want people to make some value and add some value to their lives, and you want to help them, then you definitely need to conquer these three steps. But this brings us to another kind of amalgam, which is related to empathy and its difference with sympathy. So, what makes the two different or alike? There are a lot of ideas, and Salwa has done some research about this. Yeah, we found that sympathy is very different from empathy to begin with.
Yeah, I love this topic. Please go ahead.
So I think that empathy fuels more connection. So when you're an empath and you're empathizing, then you are in a connection mode. So you're trying to connect, to understand, while sympathy is more like about disconnection. So I sympathize and that's it, right?
Yeah, I think we can portray that where we're watching a movie. We watch a movie in general we have a sympathy feeling developing. There's a story going on behind in the screen, and we're there sitting with our popcorn. Okay, let's go stereotyped. And yeah, we're enjoying the movie. We feel what they. Yeah, I understand what's going on, but that's about it. Um, Empathy is the moment when you stop being just the audience and you're really engaging with your feelings, and maybe at some point just really crying with what's going on in the movie, or at the end of the movie, even if the end is beautiful. If you get to that state, well, that is actually the difference between sympathy and empathy. With, yeah, which definitely it's one. It's like both sided. There isn't just one side of interaction happening. So there are four cornerstones to empathy, as defined by Theresa Wiseman, who is just the reference in the empathy field. And she talks about, first of all, being able to have the perspective and take the perspective of another person, to just accept that their perspective means their truth to them. And by doing so, you stay actually out of judgment, which is the second cornerstone. Don't judge what the other person's feeling or going through. And you're just recognizing the emotion that this person is going through. And something is really important to, like you said, it's both sides. It's really like an interaction, is to communicate that understanding as well, and not just stay in your corner. So maybe when you're watching a movie, you can't really communicate that, but you know, it's way to go.
So, if we want to just wrap up this first part about emotional intelligence and empathy, so you have just to remember that there is material capital, which is rational intelligence, that's the IQ, and it is basically what you think. So what I think, the facts. There's social capital, which is the emotional intelligence, and it's a little bit beyond it, which is what I feel. So, and as we said, emotions are just unconscious notifications, right? And then there's the spiritual capital, which is related to spiritual intelligence, which is another level, and it is what I am. So what are your values, who you are, and then what are the emotions that you want to feel and you let in, and what to think and act based on that knowledge. So now we are going to, I think that we are in a way or in a situation where we can learn how to become an empathic person. First one. First one I think is very crucial and interesting to learn and to know about, which is good listening. How to be a good listener.
Yeah. Yes, that's the key. That's the first step. Talking about listening or active listening, let me just tell you in a quick way about an experience I had. I remember when I was 16, I don't know why, but I just decided I wanted to become a better listener and to experience that. And what I did was basically set a few rules to myself, which were, first of all, whenever I talk to someone, it will be all about them and their life. It wouldn't be about what I want to say and what I want to share about myself, which pushed me to just really ask the person about herself, about what she is doing, and just get curious about her and let the person talk. And I would never talk about myself unless that person would ask me, how about you, or something like that. So that really helped me just begin to really, really fully listen to the other person and not start to quickly make comparison or bring the story that she's telling me to my own experience and say, oh yeah, right, and that's what happened to me as well. That's something we all we tend to do very often, and I believe it's not really active listening, and mostly just helped me to really be there and mindfully with the person that is telling me. It's really not about finding a solution. If she's telling you about a problem, it's just really be there listening to that person. And the thing is, that experience actually brought me one of my most precious friendships, and that person would recognize herself, I believe, when listening to this podcast. So, yeah, active listening. And another way to develop active listening is actually reading. When you're reading, you're totally putting your thoughts off, right? I think, Sophia, you could tell us much more about that.
Yeah, I think that reading, but more about reading novels, you know. I think that kind of fiction, historical fiction or whatever, but novels, in general, they help you learn and be in the shoes of someone else, since the narrator sometimes goes deeper and deeper into the characters. And one great example for that would be Dostoevsky. And I think he does some surgery there. It's more like he goes really inside of the characters and let you see the motives, the intentions, the emotions, and everything. And for me, I link Dostoevsky's works to spiritual intelligence, because it goes really beyond the emotions to values and so on. And this would help you a lot. Try to find excuses for other people. Try to have like more hypotheses about them, like how to have more possibilities and the things that people might be feeling, might be thinking, and you can just start guessing. And it's really opening you one way of imagining yourself being an empath, right?
Totally. When you are reading a novel, you're totally forgetting about yourself and your life, and are willing to fully embrace another story, someone else's story, which actually brings us to the next point, which is imagine yourself being one with the other person by visualizing her story, by being in her shoes. And that's reading and active listening is definitely something that help you get to. And once you're there, I guess you gotta avoid judgment. Whatever you find there when you put the other person's shoes,
I mean,
mostly don't judge, right?
now you know, really. It's more like now you know. So you have to avoid the judgment, right?
Exactly. I think the most important thing is just that state of acceptance you get to whatever what you found is. But how you get there, Sophia, I believe that to get to the state of empathy with the other, it's like everything else in the world, you have to start with yourself, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think that if you start practicing these first basic 4 or 5 steps, you will be now an empath. So, congratulations. And as we know, with great power comes great responsibilities, right? So, there's the thing that you should know and you should be aware of is that you have this empathic energy and you should protect it. Because once you open the gate and you're empath with everyone, so you might just feel so drained and tired of all the effort that you put there to understand others, especially if it's not mutual, right? So one of the first advices, I think, and we agree on this, me and Salwa, which is first, be empathic with yourself, okay? And you can do this through journaling. So you get to know what you need, you recognize your own emotions and feelings, which is very important for mindfulness, and it can help you too. So whether you do it through meditation or any other activity, it's very helpful to set some time to be quiet and present with oneself and just talk to yourself the way you would talk to a dear friend,
Totally.
right?
This reminds me of one of our very early episodes, which is stillness. Stillness is a way to practice empathy, actually. So, yeah, you can go back and revisit that. And so, once you start with yourself, another way to actually protect that really precious energy is to know how and when to set boundaries. And this might be different from a person to another. For example, if you have a person in your life, and we all know at least one person like that, let's just be honest, who you find particularly draining, you just have to set boundaries and decide how much of your energy you are putting in that relationship and you are giving out there by being empathic and by being a good listener. Being a good listener does not mean being in a passive situation. No, you're actually being active just by your state of being, receiving what the other person is giving out is given out to
Mm-hmm.
you. So your job there towards yourself is to set the filters to receive only the things
Mm-hmm.
you can and you allow yourself to receive and you are able to handle, I think.
Exactly. I think, yeah, it's very important to know the threshold beyond which you cannot take it. Know your limits, right? Know thyself. We go back to one of the techniques which we found really important, not just for empathy, but for anything you want to learn, actually. So that's visualization techniques. So one technique would be, as you're now an empath, of course, right? So you have to imagine that you have a glass wall between you and the person you're speaking to. So while you are engaging in an active listening and feeling this empathy, you're protected from taking on their emotions. So you're rather acknowledging, recognizing, but you're not taking it, right? Do you ever do this, Salwa? Have you ever tried this?
Yeah, it happened to me. It happened especially in some professional situations where at the beginning I come in with a very empathic attitude. I being like, this meeting is going to be so, you know, lighthearted and very good energy. And I realize that maybe someone around the table is not having the same attitude, and I'm actually receiving a lot of, you know, energy that is not for the best. And at that particular moment, I feel like I have to build this glass wall between us to receive only when I need to receive in a way I can respond that is actually effective and productive for the reason why we are both there at the end of the day. So I'm actively listening, but I'm filtering at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
I found that taking the time off the situations to do that actually helps develop that state. Which, for instance, if you take time to do really mindful practice like yoga or meditation or prayer that is really focused on empathy, somehow you develop the skills needed so that when you're out there in the field, in the arena, as Brene Brown would put it, um, you quickly have the skill you need, which is, for example, setting that glass wall in a way to interact with that situation.
Mm-hmm. So I think that we will have a future session about that with an special empathy meditation with Guess Who, and I'm really looking forward to it. I really need that, right? So I don't know if you've tried our guided meditation series, but I've tried the first one personally and I felt it like it was really good. I don't know what you think about it. Let us know. So I think that today's episode comes to an end, but as a way to just conclude on all what we've said, all what we've thought, we have a huge need to preserve empathy and we have to cultivate it among us, okay? And we deeply believe that the future is emotional, right? So we aspire, through this project and our podcast, to awake the empaths inside of us. It's definitely not going to solve our problems instantly, but only a few of them can be solved without it. But only a few of them can be
Yes,
solved without
totally.
it.
Mm, exactly. We hope that this talk today that we believe that is not easy, but definitely worth listening to and re-listening to, and more of that, just having a debate about. So please join us on Instagram and all the comments to really just talk about empathy and what you believe about it. We hope that this talk really can help bridge between us and the other that is always unknown, and help us just really nurture and understand and have the right attitudes towards others, towards our internal battles and challenges, acknowledging our own in theirs. Thanks for listening to our talk. We had a good time recording it for you. Let us know what was your favorite part. If you liked this episode, please share it with your friends. And don't forget to join the Birds family on Instagram. Peace be upon you all.